So, stress, one of my favorite topics, and what a buzzword these days. Everybody's stressed. Everybody is exhausted and tired and stressed. And yeah, that's life. It really is. So if you're feeling stressed, you're not alone. I know you're not alone. I think it's really interesting when we talk about stress, about really understanding what stress is. Stress always thinks it's this kind of like a thing that's really bad, whereas actually there's good stress and there's bad stress. Good stress allows you, when you go to the gym and you stress your muscles and they kind of break and you rebuild them and you get stronger. Good stress is one that kind of pushes you towards an end goal, that you kind of feel motivated to do something that you need to. Stress is also the thing that's going to get you out of your bed if your house is on fire. However, there's also the bad stress and the kind of level of stress, or let's say chronic stress, that we can feel in our bodies. Whether it's a problem with a relationship, or let's say here, a problem with work, whether it's a colleague or whether it's someone like your boss. Big opportunity there. Many people have problems with their boss. It's really, really common. So what do we mean by stress, or bad stress, or stress in general, but also in this case, bad stress? It is felt in the body, it is an experience, and what neurobiologists say is it's our internal experience and whether that matches our external events. So there might be something very stressful happening outside, but if internally we are together and we are okay, we don't feel that as being stressful. Whereas at other times, maybe if our internal experience or our internal state is not very good, we can find not very stressful situations incredibly stressful. You know, maybe you've had a long day and all of a sudden someone kind of asks you to take out the rubbish and all of a sudden you just break and you go crazy. So stress comes out in different places. It is personal, it's relational, it's also contextual depending on where we are. And generally what happens is that when our internal experience is not met to the external events outside us, our body goes into what is basically our sympathetic nervous system. And that's the whole like fight or flight. It's the kind of raised heartbeat. It's the increased blood pressure. It's the feeling hot. It's the eyes that go together instead of a kind of very easy, relaxed. It's the real kind of tensing of muscles to either fight someone or flight, get the hell out of there. We'll also talk about freeze, but we'll do that in another video. So this moment of this fight or flight, this intensity is not nice and it's not enjoyable. And when it's experienced over a long period of time, it can be incredibly difficult on our bodies, because the amount of hormones and neurotransmitters that are being put into our bodies, things like cortisol and adrenaline, are fine for a short amount of time, but actually over a long period of time can be incredibly difficult, detrimental, and harming to our system. So let's get to it. For example, in a case when someone is having problems with a co-worker, or they're feeling overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have, or their boss is on their back the whole time, these things are getting on their nerves. It already has that body kind of attachment, right? So it always depends on what the context is, but maybe when we're talking around this with a client in a kind of a cognitive way, you know, what is needed from you from the moment? What kind of conversations are you having about reducing that stress or communicating that stress with someone? What are the boundaries that are being set that aren't being honored and respected, so that someone is stepping into our boundaries and therefore creating that amount of stress? What is this kind of, where is the awareness around the context of being in a busy place, having a family, having high expectations, needing to perform? Are we really aware of like the level of stress? Are we conscious of like the things that we're doing to be part of that stress or help ourselves in the stress? So that's how we might be kind of talking, as I said, very quickly about questions around it, asking the client to go deeper into like, what is stress and where is it coming up? In a somatic sense, what we might do, or what I would look at, is feeling stress as a part of our body. Sometimes people feel stress in their shoulders, tightness in their neck. Some people get stress in their stomach and actually have gut problems. Again, we will talk about gut problems in another video. It might be kind of a slumping and feeling really down. And sometimes it can be very much kind of up in the air. And so what we can do in a somatic sense, and somatic experiencing, is really just kind of being with the body and quietening down to listen to that extra information. We might sit and just feel that tightness in the shoulder. And instead of resisting it and fighting it, which creates more stress in our lives, trying to get rid of it, we just allow it to be there for a moment. And we come to it with a sense of listening, understanding, some self-compassion. And we see if that bodily sense, the felt sense, starts to have some information around it. And when we look into it and we focus on it, we can understand that what it's asking from us is that it needs more rest. We need to bring more rest periods into our life. Maybe there's something in it that feels like there's some honesty. Maybe moving forward, I need to be more honest about things to myself and to the relationships I have or the work that I'm doing. What is it trying to say? And so when we have that, that kind of somatic information about what that felt sense of stress is, it can be incredibly helpful. And then thirdly, in a kind of an embodied way, a kind of like getting the body involved. I mentioned earlier about some stresses for more earthy people feels very like slumped and resentful. So maybe more kind of a bit more movement and kind of, trying to kind of let that kind of express itself and get it out, whether it's, moving, going for a run, shouting a bit more. Sometimes stress comes in much more earthy people and they're all up in their heads and they can't deal with it. And in that sense, I might ground them. Let's do that. So in a grounding technique, also what we might call centering, I'll just move that out of the way. We'll go down into the ground. I'll do this at a 45 so you can see, but I'll keep my feet hip widths apart, slightly bend the knees, keep the back straight and just relax the shoulders, let the front go soft. Maybe put a hand on my belly just to feel my center, my core. Just breathe out. Breathe out and just let it go. And this centering can be used for all sorts of different things when we are stressed or overwhelmed, anxious, just slowing things down, feeling connected into the ground and allowing ourselves just to come into a center instead of being pulled in different directions. Just be here. And from this place, what opportunities are there? What extra information can there be? Slowing down, looking after ourselves, opening up that capacity. So that's maybe a very quick thing I might do within the embodiment stuff. And then finally, we might also then look at the kind of social support that somebody has. Who do you have to talk to about this? What kind of self-care are you doing? How are you supporting yourself in your physical sense? How are you helping yourself go and from that sympathetic nervous system, from the fight or flight, to dysregulate and calm down into the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest, this healing state. What is life like outside of work that we can really consider about taking care of ourselves? Because really what we're trying to do is build this window of tolerance so that when we turn up for work and we find ourselves in that difficult place with a co-worker or boss, maybe we can have those conversations that are really necessary. Maybe we can bring a certain honesty to them, to that conversation, to that relationship. And maybe when we're having those conversations and feel like we're kind of being dysregulated and want to run or fight and get out there, how about we center ourselves, keeping our feet on the floor, hip widths apart, relaxing the shoulder and the jaw, and having that conversation about honesty, about what's going on, about where the stress is coming from and what you need. How can that be really beneficial? So I hope that video has explained a little bit about just the idea of stress, what different types it is, how it's affecting our body, that we can kind of take into consideration, and those 3 different ways that we can work with it. And we might use all 3, we might use a couple of those. Maybe just one is fine. Hopefully, at the end of a session, we're going to get you to a place where actually dealing with that stress, you feel far more ready, prepared, and have the tools to do it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it was helpful and enjoyable. And if you're experiencing stress or anxiety, you're not alone. And I wish you good luck with it. And if there's anything you'd like to talk about,